In the heart of Nigeria's southeast, between cities once defined by ambition and now scarred by neglect, a quiet transformation is unfolding. For decades, factories, highways, and ports that once powered the region's economy were left abandoned, victims of policy failure, political neglect, and time. But today, a new conversation is emerging, one that asks not just what was lost, but what can still be rebuilt. This is a story of resilience, revival, and accountability. A story about the infrastructure that shaped a region and the efforts now underway to bring it back to life. Welcome to the silent renaissance, revitalizing Southeast abandoned infrastructure. If you are passionate about development, governance, and the future of Nigeria's Southeast, stay with us. This journey reveals both the scars of the past and the blueprints for tomorrow. In the years following Nigeria's independence, the Southeast emerged as a shining example of regional development planning. The defunct Eastern Nigerian government, led by Dr. Michael Okpara, pioneered industrialization on an unprecedented scale. It was the 1960s, and the East was booming. Factories were not just buildings, they were symbols of visions. At the heart of Enugu State, the Enugu coal mines powered homes and industries across the nation. Coal City was not just a name, it was an identity. The Nkalago Cement Factory, founded in 1957 in present-day Ebonyi State, stood as the first cement plant in West Africa, producing thousands of tons that built the nation's early infrastructures. Further south, Aba and Umuahia blossomed into manufacturing hubs. The Golden Guinea Breweries in Umuahia, established in 1962, was one of Nigeria's earliest modern breweries. The Aba textile mills and modern ceramics in Umuahia showcased the region's push towards self-reliance production. The Onitsha River port connected the east to the Niger, enabling a thriving trade network that moved goods to and fro the Atlantic coast. This was not just development, it was a plan under the Eastern Nigerian Economic Plan of 1962 to 1968. Industries were deliberately sited to promote balance and interdependence among cities. But the dream was interrupted. The Nigerian Civil War, 1967 to 1970, devastated this foundation. Infrastructures were bombed, factories stripped, and supply chains cut off. After the war, the eastern region was divided into smaller states, and the unified economic vision fractured. What followed was decades of neglect, bureaucratic inertia, and unrealized potentials. The post-war years brought reconstruction promises. Yet, as the 1970s turned to the 1980s, much of the Southeast industrial framework fell into decline. The Enugu coal mines, once Nigeria's energy backbone, were gradually abandoned as the nation shifted focus into crude oil. By the 1990s, mining operations had almost ceased entirely, leaving behind communities that had thrived on coal, now grappling with unemployment and migration. The Nkalago Cement Factory, which once supplied the entire East and beyond, was shut down in the early 2000s due to mismanagement and machinery failures. Its massive silos still stand today, silent monuments of forgotten industries. In Abia State, the Aba textile mills, once producing thousands of meters of fabrics daily, collapsed under the weight of foreign imports and policy inconsistency. The modern ceramics in Umuahia, intended to supply ceramic tiles and sanitary wares across Nigeria, was left to rot under government neglect. The Onitsha River port, completed in the 1980s, never reached its full potential due to bureaucratic delays and lack of dredging along the River Niger. Its grand opening was followed years later. The region's transport infrastructure also deteriorated. Federal roads such as the Enugu-Port Harcourt Expressway and Onitsha-Owerri Road became synonymous with hardship. What was once a 90-minute journey could stretch into hours, choking trade between Nigeria's major markets. Throughout these decades, successive governments promised revivals, yet many projects either stalled, were abandoned midway, or never reached completion. By the late 1990s, the Southeast industrial landscape was a museum of lost ambitions. To understand the scale of abandonment, one must look at the promises that followed and what became of them. Take the Ada Dam project in Enugu, conceived in the 1980s to supply water and power to Nsukka and neighboring communities. It was abandoned multiple times despite repeated budget allocations. The Ajokuta-Itobe-Onitsha railway link, envisioned to connect the southeast to national industrial corridors, stalled before reaching Onitsha. The Onitsha River Port, despite repeated commissioning ceremonies, including those in 1983, 2012, and 2021, still struggles with operational efficiency due to poor coordination among federal agencies. In Imo State, the Avutu Poultry Project, initiated under Sam Mbekwe administration to provide employment and food security, was abandoned after the early 1980s. Its empty pens today symbolize a broader loss of continuity in public policy. The Enugu International Trade Fair Complex, designed to host major international and regional expos, remain underdeveloped compared to its counterparts in Lagos and Kaduna. Similarly, the Aba glass industry and Aba General Steel Mills, both state-linked investments, were left uncompleted or allowed to collapse in the late 20th century. Even the Sam Mbakwe International Cargo Airport, while operational, has suffered from inconsistent funding for expansion, limiting its potential as a logistic hub for the region. For decades, political shifts, corruption, lack of maintenance culture, and uneven federal allocation eroded these assets. Projects began, but few were sustained beyond electoral circles. The result, a generation grew up amid the ruins of unrealized infrastructure. In the 21st century, a slow but measurable awakening began. Across the Southeast, government-led initiatives, both federal and state, started to revisit the region's dormant assets. In Ebonyi State, the Nkalago Cement Factory was revived under the new name Nigeria after its acquisition and partial revitalization through the state government and private partners. Though not yet at full capacity, the move symbolized a new wave of industrial reawakening. In Enugu, the state colony reclamation project gained renewed attention. Efforts were made to assess the feasibility of resuming limited coal production for energy use alongside plans for tourism at the historic Iva Valley site. The Aba leather and garment cluster, though largely driven by artisans, benefited from government infrastructural support, roads, electricity, and security aimed at formalizing production spaces once abandoned. Meanwhile, the Onitsha River Port saw partial reactivation under the National Inland Waterways Authority, signaling intent to integrate inland water transport with national logistics. The Enugu-Port Harcourt Expressway and Second Niger Bridge, two long neglected lifelines, finally witnessed major federal attention. The Second Niger Bridge, completed in 2023, became a landmark achievement in easing mobility between the southeast and the rest of the country. In Imo State, the Avutu poultry farm has seen modest revival attempts by the state agencies, while the Oguta Wonderland Lake Resort, originally a tourism and power generation project, is undergoing rehabilitation under the Imo State government. These efforts mark the beginning of what analysts described as a silent renaissance, a pragmatic attempt to reconnect the regional's industrial heritage to its economic future. To understand the Renaissance, we turn to key examples that define both failure and progress. The Nkalago cement factory remains a central symbol. Once the pride of eastern Nigeria, its long dormancy cost the region billions in potential revenue and jobs. Yet, its ongoing revival under Nigeria offers hope, though experts warn that sustainability will depend on consistent government oversight and market competitiveness. The Enugu coal mines, though unlikely to return to their mid-century glory, still represent untapped energy potential. Renewed studies into clean coal technology and regional power generation could transform them into modern energy parks if policy commitment is maintained. The Aba leather and textile zones demonstrate targeted infrastructure can achieve. Roads, power supply, industrial clusters provided by government programs have boosted local manufacturing. That initiative shows that even abandoned industrial towns can return to life with the right infrastructure base. The Second Niger Bridge, after decades of delay, stands as a testament to perseverance. Completed through federal funding and partnership frameworks, it now eases one of Nigeria's most congested trade routes, restoring critical link between Onitsha and Asaba. Finally, the Onitsha River Port embodies the region's long struggle for federal attention. Its partial reactivation has revived hope for a balanced transport system. Yet, experts argue that only continuous dredging and interagency cooperation will make it fully functional. These examples reveal a simple truth. Infrastructure neglect can last decades, but revival is possible through policy, continuity, investment, and accountability. The revitalization of Southeast Nigeria's abandoned infrastructure is not a tale of charity or nostalgia. It is a matter of national responsibility. For decades, federal investment partners across Nigeria have revealed a deep regional disparity. Analysts and development economics point to data showing uneven budgetary allocation, slower project completion rates, and underfunded federal assets in the southeast compared to other zones. Take, for instance, the Enugu-Onitsha Expressway, a federal road vital to the movement of goods between eastern trade corridors and the north, announced for rehabilitation in 2013, awarded multiple times, yet not fully completed until a decade later. Or the Enugu-Port Harcourt Expressway, reconstructed in phases after years of public pressure. Critics argue that projects in the region often suffer from inconsistent funding release and political discontinuity. When administrations change, priorities shift, and many projects are left behind. However, in recent years, both federal and state governments have begun to recognize the economic necessity of reinvestment. The completion of the Second Niger Bridge, the reconstruction of major federal highways, and the partial reactivation of the Onitsha River Port reflect a slow reorientation towards inclusivity. State governments have also taken on more active roles, sometimes funding federal assets to accelerate progress. The Ebonyi state government, for example, directly intervened in the revival of the Niger Sen plant, while Enugu State partnered with federal agencies to develop industrial parks near Emene and Night Mile. But the challenges remain complex: inadequate maintenance funding, policy inconsistency, overlapping jurisdiction, and limited local ownerships. Experts insist that without sustained framework for infrastructure maintenance and industrial policy continuity, the region risks repeating the same cycle: build, abandon, and rebuild. Revitalizing abandoned infrastructure is not just about restoring old buildings or resuming halted projects. It is about unlocking the region's strategic role in Nigeria's future. The Southeast is home to some of the nation's most enterprising citizens, known for their capacity to create wealth, innovate, and trade globally. Yet, these talents have been constrained by poor infrastructure, unreliable power, and inefficient logistic networks. When the Onitsha River Port functions optimally, it can decongest Lagos Port and serve as a gateway for imports and exports to the southeast and north central regions. When the Aba Industrial Cluster operates with reliable electricity and road access, they can compete regionally with manufacturing centers in West Africa and across the globe. When the Enugu coal fields and the Ada Ada Dam are modernized, they could contribute to decentralized energy solutions. The revitalization of these assets directly connects to Nigeria's goal for job creation, regional balance, and economic diversification. Moreover, infrastructure renewal rebuilds confidence, both for investors and for citizens. Each revived factory or completed road signals that the government can still work, that progress is possible even after decades of stagnation. Urban planners describe this process as developmental recycling, turning old underutilized assets into engines of new growth. In the Southeast, this recycling is not just economic, it is deeply symbolic, a reclaiming of agency and rewriting of the narrative of neglect. Revival alone is not enough. Sustainability requires vision, and that vision must be protected from politics. Over the years, several federal and state-led initiatives have aimed to address this imbalance. The National Integrated Infrastructure Master Plan, the Nigeria Industrial Revolution Plan, and the state-level blueprints such as the Ebonyi Industrial Policy Framework all include the Southeast as a priority region. Yet, implementation remains the weakest link. Experts suggest a threefold path forward. First, institutionalize maintenance and monitoring mechanism. Every completed project should have a permanent maintenance unit backed by legislation and budget. Second, build regional industrial corridors linking Enugu, Aba, Onitsha, and Owerri, ensuring shared infrastructure, logistics, and energy. Third, enhance transparency through public accountability portals where citizens can track projects' progress and expenditure. In addition, local content and youth technical programs are vital. Revitalized infrastructures must create skills and empowerment, not just structures. Ultimately, policy continuity will depend on political will. In a federation often shaped by electoral cycles, only consistent governance across administrations can preserve the momentum of silent renaissance. The Southeast Governors Forum, through coordinated plan, now plays a growing role in advocating for federal attention and cross-border projects, from power supply to transport integration. This collaborative mechanism, if sustained, could ensure that the region no longer depends solely on promises, but on measurable progress. Across the 5 states of the Southeast, Abia, Anambra, Ebonyi, Enugu and Imo, the signs of regional transformation are beginning to emerge. In Abia, road reconstruction and industrial clusters are reshaping Aba's long-abandoned estates. In Anambra, the government investment in the Anambra cargo and passenger airport and the Onitsha river port is laying groundwork for its logistic-driven economy. In Ebonyi, industrial parks around Abakaliki and Nkalago are redefining the state's image from agrarian to industrial. Enugu is revitalizing its energy corridors and promoting tourism around its coal heritage. Imo continues to rehabilitate key agricultural and tourism assets, including Oguta Lake and rural road networks. These efforts are not uniform, but they reflect a common understanding that the future of the Southeast depends on infrastructure that works and not industries that last. For many, this process of renewal is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet, built on technical plans, policies, meetings, and construction that may go unnoticed. But over time, such quiet work builds the foundation of transformation. This is why analysts describes it as a silent renaissance, not driven by political fanfare, but by gradual recovery of value. If sustained, this renaissance could position the Southeast once again as a hub of productivity and innovation in Nigeria's economic landscape. In the shadow of forgotten factories and silent ports, a quiet determination is taking root. The rusting gates of abandoned projects are slowly cranking open, not through slogans, but through measured actions. The Southeast story is no longer one of decline, but of rediscovery. From Enugu to Aba, from Nkalago to Onitsha, communities are witnessing a cautious but deliberate return to purpose. The revival of infrastructure is more than reconstruction. It is a reawakening, a recognition that what was once left behind can still serve a nation tomorrow. And as Nigeria looks to diversify its economy and rebuild its internal connections, the Southeast stands ready to contribute, not with nostalgia for the past, but with new resolve to build the future. The Renaissance may be silent, but in its silence lies the sound of progress, steady, grounded, and enduring. The story of the Southeast is far from over. Its silent renaissance is not a miracle. It is the outcome of persistence, planning, and refusal to give up on forgotten dreams. Every rehabilitated road, every reopened factory, every revived port tells a story of what is possible when leadership meets accountability. If you believe in documenting Nigeria's transformation and in shining light on stories that matter, don't forget to support this channel. Click subscribe, share this documentary, and join us in telling the real stories of progress across Nigeria and Africa. Because history is not only written by those who remember, it is shaped by those who rebuild. This has been the Silent Renaissance, revitalizing Southeast abandoned infrastructure. Thank you for watching.